Welcome to the Love Story with Lisa channel. Today, we're bringing you a brand new story. She schemed to steal my life. But of all people, she chose the wrong one. My roommate handed me a red envelope. With just a single glance, I recognized it immediately, life-buying ritual money. So I burned it for that perverted ghost. That very night, a man climbed onto my roommate's bed. Hazel Hahn, thank you for going to the hospital with me today. You have to take this red envelope. The moment we stepped out of the hospital, Ivy Yen stuffed a red envelope into my hand. Before I could even react, she waved at me. I still have something to do at home, so I can't walk you back. Then she slipped into a taxi and disappeared. I looked down at the red envelope in my hand. Half annoyed, half amused. My father, Master Han, is a well-known feng shui master. Growing up beside him, I absorbed quite a bit of knowledge by osmosis. One look was enough. Inside this red envelope was life-buying ritual money. To confirm my suspicion, I carefully flipped it over. Sure enough, in the lower right corner on the back, written in tiny red characters, were Ivy Yan's birth details. Her 8 characters. The writing was so small, and in red ink no less. If I hadn't been paying close attention, I might never have noticed. I was completely speechless. Ivy Yen had gotten pregnant unexpectedly. When her boyfriend found out, he vanished without a trace. She didn't dare tell her parents. In the dormitory, she begged me for days before I finally agreed to accompany her to the hospital for an abortion. She must have been afraid that after the procedure her body would grow weak, that it would affect her final exams and cost her the scholarship. So she came up with such a vicious plan. Buy my life. Use my young lifespan to restore her health. Unbelievable. Truly unbelievable. I went with you to the hospital out of kindness. And you want to buy my little life in return? Fine. You want to buy a life, but with what? 200 yuan, and where's the money to bribe the ghosts? I let out a cold laugh. After all, I am Master Han's daughter. If you want to scheme against me, then yes, you found exactly the right person. Without another word, I hailed a taxi straight to the nearest cemetery. Life-buying ritual money isn't meant for just anyone. It buys the life of the person who actually spends it. Only when the targeted spirit uses the money does the ritual count as complete. I wandered around the cemetery the entire afternoon. It wasn't until night had fully fallen that I finally crouched down in front of a grave. I had calculated the fates of every person buried in this cemetery. The one lying before me was an old pervert. When he was alive, he committed too many vile deeds. He had yet to be reincarnated and was still suffering punishment in the 18 hells. It was him. I took out the red envelope, flicked on my lighter, and began to burn it, chanting Ivy Yan's birth details as I did. Big brother, you might not know this little sister of mine, but she's secretly admired you since childhood. You don't know this, but after you died, she cried herself unconscious several times. So today she asked me to burn some money for you. 200 yuan isn't much, but it's her heartfelt offering. Spend it sparingly. If it's not enough, you can always go find her again. When the red envelope burned completely to ashes, I stood up and brushed the dirt from my clothes. Only then did I head back to school. The moment I stepped into the dormitory, Ivy Yen hurried over impatiently. Hazel Han, did you spend the red envelope money? I nodded repeatedly. Spent it all. Thanks. The moment she heard that, her face lit up with joy. It's good that you spent it. You went to the hospital with me. It's only right that I do something in return. After saying that, she quickly climbed into bed. I looked at her with dark, knowing eyes. My dear, your good days are only just beginning. Perhaps it was because she was in a good mood. Or perhaps because her body was weakened after the abortion. It didn't take long before Ivy Yen began snoring loudly, but I couldn't sleep, so I lay in bed, scrolling on my phone. At exactly 12 past midnight, a sudden chill swept through the room. I shuddered. The tightly locked dormitory door slowly creaked open. A thin man appeared silently in the doorway. He sniffed the air. Then he let out a strange, twisted laugh, and climbed straight onto Ivy Yen's bed. Early the next morning, Ivy Yen was still dragging herself, unwilling to get up. Seeing that we were about to be late for class, I lightly knocked on her bed frame. Only then did she slowly wake up. What happened? Didn't my alarm go off? I spread my hands helplessly. It did. It's been ringing for ages. I thought you heard it. She crawled down from the bed, her face exhausted. I'm so tired. Why did I sleep like the dead? I pretended not to know. You just went through such a major procedure yesterday. Of course you're weak. If you want, you should skip classes for a while and rest properly in the dorm. But Ivy Yen's expression turned puzzled. She muttered under her breath, that can't be. I already bought a life. Then she turned to look at me. Hazel Han, are you absolutely sure you spent all the red envelope money yesterday? I nodded firmly. Spent it all. Why are you asking? If you're short on cash, I can transfer some to you. Ivy Yen immediately waved her hands. No, 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 it's fine. I still have to go to class. Final exams are coming up. I can't afford to fall behind. Ivy Yen's academic record had always been excellent. Since entering university, she had consistently ranked first in class, though, truth be told, I had never once seen her study. Her spirits weren't good that morning. She kept lowering her head, dozing off repeatedly. At noon, when we returned to the dormitory, Ivy Yen glanced at the timetable and let out a sigh of relief. There's class this afternoon, but I'm not going. That professor never takes attendance. I have to get some sleep. But who could have expected, for the first time ever, during that afternoon lecture, the professor called on students to answer questions. Out of more than 300 students across different majors, he chose us. When he discovered Ivy Yen was absent, Professor Chen was furious. This is the one time I take attendance, and I catch someone skipping? I'm deducting all her participation points. The moment Ivy Yen heard, she rushed to plead with him. A while later, she returned with a devastated expression. It's over, it's over. That professor is famous for being strict. I'm going to fail this course. Seeing her miserable face, I felt a flicker of unease. Quietly, I calculated the ghost's fate again in my mind. The result made me dizzy. That ghost wasn't just a perverted spirit, he was a calamity spirit. Now this was getting interesting. Once entangled with a calamity spirit, Ivy Yen would likely suffer misfortune for quite some time. For several nights in a row, at exactly 12 o'clock, the calamity spirit appeared without fail and climbed onto Ivy Yen's bed. Her condition worsened day by day. Her face grew pale, her expression lifeless. After walking just 2 steps, she would be out of breath. Finally, she could no longer endure it and came to confront me. Hazel Han, tell me the truth. Did you really use the money in that red envelope? I sighed helplessly. Big sister, I really did. But what's wrong with you? She pressed on. How did you use it? Tell me exactly. With an innocent expression, I replied, I burned it for my ex-boyfriend. Ah. My ex died quite miserably. He dated a dozen girls at the same time without telling me. He even went to prostitutes. In the end, he exhausted himself to death while in bed with one. I was afraid that after death he becomes some muddle-headed wandering ghost, unable to reincarnate. Even though I hated him, we were together for a while. After accompanying you to the hospital, I suddenly thought of him. So I burned the red envelope you gave me for him. Ivy Yen, you're not going to mind, are you? I struggled to suppress my laughter as I watched her face turn red, then green, her mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. Finally, she spun around and ran out of the dormitory. That evening, Ivy Yen returned with a smile and walked over to me. Hazel Han, can you tell me your birth date and 8 characters? The moment she said that, I became slightly wary. What are you planning to do? She laughed lightly. Nothing. We've lived together so long. And I don't even know your birthday. If I want to buy you a gift, is that not allowed? I raised an eyebrow. I can tell you my birthday. But my 8 characters? That's not really necessary, is it? But Ivy Yen refused to give up. She leaned close to my ear and whispered mysteriously, you don't know this, but I know a master fortune teller who's incredibly accurate. I've always asked him to read my fortune. You've treated me so well. I want him to calculate yours too, see when you'll finally escape being single. Oh. Fortune telling? You're that kind? Just then, my phone vibrated with a message. I quietly glanced at it, and immediately smiled. Ivy Yen, I don't really believe in that stuff. But since you insist, I suppose I should thank you. Forget about being single. Ask your master to calculate when I'll get rich. Then I recited my birth date and 8 characters. Ivy Yen pulled out a yellowed piece of paper and wrote them down. The smile on her face grew even brighter. Oh, right, Hazel Han. There's one more thing I want to discuss. I'm not feeling well today. Can you turn off the lights and go to sleep early? I nodded at once, sure. I'm tired too. I'd like to sleep early. It was just the 2 of us in the dorm room. Seeing me agree, Ivy Yen climbed into bed. I lay down with my eyes closed, but secretly watched her. The screen of her phone at the bedside remained lit for a long time. After a while, she quietly climbed down from her bed. I immediately shut my eyes and deepened my breathing, pretending to be asleep. I heard her footsteps approach my bedside. She stood there for a moment, then moved away. Carefully, I opened my eyes. I saw Ivy Yen rummaging through my wardrobe. She took out one of my coats, and climbed back into her own bed. I instantly understood what she was planning. At exactly midnight, the thin man appeared once again at the dormitory door. He silently climbed onto Ivy Yen's bed, only this time. He quickly climbed back down, and vanished without a trace. The next morning, Ivy Yen woke up early, looking refreshed. She tossed my coat back to me cheerfully. Hazel Han, I felt a bit cold last night, so I borrowed your clothes to wear for a while. You don't mind, right? I shook my head. Of course not. Ivy Yen looked at me and let out a strange laugh. So, did you dream about your ex last night? She clicked her tongue. Who would have thought you'd end up with such an old man? Aren't you embarrassed even saying that out loud? Disgusting. I pretended not to understand. Old man? What old man? I don't know what you're talking about. Ivy Yen sneered. It's fine. Tonight. You'll understand. Then she stood up and left the dormitory. Today was the elective exam. Failing an elective was practically impossible, but the teacher was strict and forbade the use of any materials. I glanced over the test paper. Oh, they were basically giveaway questions. You could scribble something random and still pass. Relieved, I began writing fluently. It didn't take long before I finished. I was just about to stand up and hand in my paper, when I suddenly heard a sharp voice from behind. "What are you doing? Take out your phone." I turned around. The teacher was standing beside Ivy Yan's seat. Her face was flushed red. She clutched her desk drawer tightly, refusing to let go. The teacher was already losing patience. He pulled her hand away and took out a mobile phone from the drawer. "Before the exam, I clearly said all phones must be placed on the podium. Why didn't you hand yours in?" Ivy Yan stammered, unable to answer. The teacher glanced at her test paper. His voice rose even higher. "Other students have already handed in their papers, and you still have so many blank sections? It's such a simple exam, and you're cheating? Have you even attended class?" He confiscated her phone and exam paper, walked back to the podium, and wrote heavily across the sheet, "Cheating. 0 points." Ivy Yan stood beside him, pleading. He didn't even spare her a glance. When the bell rang, she grabbed her paper and stormed out of the classroom. The students immediately began whispering, "What's wrong with Ivy Yan? Cheating on such an easy exam?" "Yeah, elective grades don't even affect scholarship ranking. Why cheat? Do you think she's always ranked first because she cheats? I bet she's a repeat offender. If she cheats on electives, what about her major courses? How could she possibly rank first in her major? Only a ghost would believe that." Listening to the chatter, I suppressed a smile, packed my things, and returned to the dormitory. The power of that calamity spirit was truly formidable. In just 2 days, she had already failed 2 subjects. This year's scholarship gone. I was leisurely playing games in the dorm when Ivy Yan suddenly kicked the door open and stormed in, glaring at me viciously. "Hazel Han, did you pull some trick?" I looked innocent. "What did I do?" "Ivy Yan, speak clearly." She roared angrily. "You deliberately burned the red envelope for that damned ghost, didn't you? Hazel Han, you're vicious." I blinked. "What are you talking about? I don't understand." Her mouth twitched. The words reached her lips, but she swallowed them back. She pointed at me. "If you hadn't burned that red envelope, how could I have?" She cut herself off. "Fine. Hazel Han, just you wait. Tonight, I'll open your eyes." Then she ignored me and climbed into bed, fiddling with her phone. I looked at her back and sneered silently. "Open my eyes? The one whose eyes will be open tonight. I'm afraid it'll be you." Soon enough, midnight arrived. I wasn't sleepy at all. I knew Ivy Yan wasn't asleep either. The 2 of us seemed to be waiting for something. Suddenly, the dormitory door creaked open on its own. A freezing wind rushed in. The temperature in the room plummeted instantly, even wrapped tightly. In my blanket, I couldn't stop trembling. I secretly peeked toward the door, and what I saw nearly made me wet the bed. The perverted ghost who had climbed onto Ivy Yan's bed 2 nights ago, now stood at the doorway. He was dressed in bright red garments. Behind him were 4 short paper figures, one at each corner, carrying a paper sedan chair. The perverted ghost slowly floated into the dorm, trailing icy wind behind him. The paper figures staggered in after him. While I was still in shock, a strange voice echoed through the air. "Wife, your husband has come to marry you." The moment the words fell, the cold intensified, and that perverted ghost led the paper figures straight toward me. I immediately pulled the blanket over myself and squeezed my eyes shut. My father, Master Han, once told me, as long as I did not look at ghosts, they could not harm me. Honestly, Although I had grown up hearing countless supernatural tales from him, this was the first time I had ever been in such close contact with something like this. I felt the icy air drawing closer and closer, until it finally stopped above my head. The cold seeped through my pores, spreading through my entire body. I felt as though I were frozen solid, unable to move. I clenched my teeth to stop myself from losing consciousness. After what felt like an eternity, a cold voice whispered into my ear, "Wife, look at me. I am your husband." My eyelids trembled uncontrollably. It felt as though they were about to betray me and snap open at any second. Just as I was about to lift them, the voice spoke again, "HM? The scent is wrong. Got the wrong one." The moment that voice faded, I suddenly felt my body grow light. The force controlling my eyelids vanished in an instant. I hurriedly squeezed my eyes shut again. The cold slowly withdrew from me. I let out a long breath of relief. There were only 2 people in this dorm room. If not me, then who else could it be? Suddenly, a scream tore through the silence from Ivy Yan's bed. "No. Don't come over. You're Hazel Han's ex-boyfriend. Go find her. Why are you looking for me?" The icy voice echoed again, "You are my wife. If I don't look for you, who should I look for? See? I even brought the betrothal gifts." Immediately, a putrid stench filled the air. "Ah, help. Save me." Along with Ivy Yan's shrill screams, an overwhelming drowsiness crashed over me. My head spun, and I sank into darkness. The next day was the weekend. When I opened my eyes, it was already noon. But Ivy Yan was still in bed. It wasn't until dusk that she finally struggled upright. Her face was deathly pale, lifeless, like a walking corpse. She glared at me with venom in her eyes. In that moment, she looked no different from a vengeful ghost. "Hazel Han, what exactly did you do to me?" I calmly continued eating my takeout. "What do you mean?" "Ivy Yan, lately I can't seem to understand anything you say." She staggered out of bed and stormed toward me, then suddenly swept my lunchbox off the table. "You bitch, Hazel Han. Last night I arranged a ghost marriage for you. So why did that damned ghost come for me instead?" I hadn't intended to argue, but she knocked over my food, and that was something I would not tolerate. I slammed my hand against the table. "Ivy Yan, I should be the one asking you. I kindly accompanied you to the hospital, and you tried to perform a life-buying ritual on me. Don't you feel ashamed? I wasn't the one who got you pregnant. Why buy my life? If you had the guts, go buy the life of your precious boyfriend. If you don't dare look for him, then all I could do was find a perverted ghost to keep you company." Ivy Yan trembled with rage, pointing at me, but for a long time, no words came out. "Oh?" I grabbed her finger. "Don't point that filthy finger at me. The dead have no young lifespan. If you buy the life of a dead person, your own lifespan won't increase, it will decrease. But that's not entirely bad. You gifted your young lifespan to that perverted old ghost. You reduced his punishment in the 18 hells. That's why he comes to dote on you every night, isn't it? Ivy Yan, you should be thanking me. I accumulated hidden virtue for you." She tried to wrench her hand free, but she was far too weak. Not only did she fail to escape, she hurt herself and screamed in pain, "Hazel Han, let go of me." I twisted her fingers sharply. She collapsed onto the floor. "It hurts, Hazel Han, you bastard. What happened last night? I clearly arranged a ghost marriage for you. Why did that pervert come for me instead? I let out a cold laugh and released her hand. Then I walked to my wardrobe, took out the coat she had worn that night, and threw it at her. Ivy Yen. You really have good taste. This coat was my birthday gift to you. Happy birthday. Her eyes widened. What are you talking about? A gift for me? I curled my lips. Didn't you notice? There was a card inside. As I spoke, I pulled out a small card from my pocket. On it were the words, Happy birthday, classmate Ivy Yen. Below that, her birth date and 8 characters. She stared at me in disbelief. How did you know my birth date and 8 characters? I smiled faintly. It was written on your red envelope. Lower right corner. In red ink. Did you forget? Only then did Ivy Yen realize. She glared at me. Hazel Han. You planned this all along, didn't you? There was only this coat in your closet. You deliberately set me up. I laughed coldly. Big sister, take a good look at who's really setting up whom. You were the one who wanted me to have a ghost marriage with that perverted ghost. You just accidentally took the coat I had given you. That's called trying to steal a chicken and losing the rice instead. What does that have to do with me? She glared viciously. Wasn't that your ex-boyfriend? I helped you reconnect with him in the afterlife. What's wrong with that? I burst out laughing. Ex-boyfriend? Give me a break. I'm single. Where would I get an ex? You think I'd fall for an old man like that? He was just some random perverted ghost I picked from the cemetery. Her lips twitched. She slumped onto the floor, speechless. I let out a cold chuckle. Instead of gossiping about my affairs, you'd better worry about your own. A pervert. Plus a calamity spirit. TSK, TSK. Ivy Yen. Your suffering has only begun. That was my final warning. She shot me one last hateful glare, struggled to her feet, and threw down a sentence, just you wait. Then she stormed out of the dormitory. That night, Ivy Yen did not return. Early the next morning, I called Master Han and told him everything that had happened over the past few days. He instructed me to burn several talismans he had given me to ward off evil. Although those filthy entities could not directly harm me, their presence could still affect my health. I burned the talismans as instructed. But just as I finished, the dormitory door suddenly swung open. Ivy Yen walked in with Professor Chen. She pointed at me and said, Professor, Hazel Han has been doing feudal superstitious rituals in the dormitory. Professor Chen frowned and walked toward me. Hazel Han, what are you doing? I hadn't expected Ivy Yen to go this far. I frowned slightly and answered calmly, Professor, I was just burning some paper for fun. Before the professor could respond, Ivy Yen suddenly shouted, Burning paper for fun? You were burning talismans, weren't you, Hazel Han? I've felt for a long time that something's wrong with you. Professor, these past few days she's been talking nonsense to me about life-buying rituals and ghost marriage. I suspect she's using superstition to deceive people. At her words, Professor Chen's face darkened. Hazel Han, what do you mean by telling Ivy Yen these things? I rolled my eyes slightly and replied, Professor, I was just telling Ivy Yen a fairy tale. Burning paper in the dormitory was my fault. I won't do it again. I'm sorry. Of course, the professor didn't believe me. His tone turned stern. You're already in university and still telling fairy tales? Hazel Han, what exactly are you trying to do? Ivy Yen, standing beside him, quickly added smugly, Professor, Don't listen to her nonsense. She's been talking about perverted ghosts and calamity spirits. That's not a fairy tale. And if it's just a story, why burn talismans? Professor, Hazel Hahn's father is a fortune teller. He scams people. She must have learned from him and is trying to swindle classmates. She even tricked me out of a red envelope. After hearing this, the professor's expression grew even gloomier. Watching Ivy Yan's triumphant face, I almost laughed. This girl, just to frame me, she would dare anything. If she could be ruthless, then I wouldn't hold back either. I put on a flustered expression. Professor, I'm really not lying. Since things have come to this, I'll just tell the truth. Yes, my father is indeed a fortune teller. He taught me some methods to ward off evil. Today I burned talismans to help Ivy Yan dispel something. The moment I said that, Ivy Yan's face changed. Dispel something? For me? What happened to me that needs you to ward off evil? I smiled mysteriously. The other night, you suddenly screamed in the middle of the night. It was clearly spirit possession. I'm not lying, Professor. If you don't believe me, you can ask the students nearby. The scream was so loud that night, someone must have heard it. By now, a group of classmates had gathered outside our dorm room, watching the drama unfold. After hearing me, Professor Chen turned and scanned the crowd. His gaze landed on Lily Song, who lived in the neighboring dorm. Lily Song. Tell me. Did you hear anything that night? Lily Song was suddenly put on the spot. She hesitated. Stammering, Professor. The professor widened his eyes. Speak the truth. Did you hear anything? Flustered and red-faced, Lily Song finally nodded. Yes, Professor. I did hear Ivy Yan scream. Ivy Yan's eyes widened. What are you talking about? When did I scream? Before Lily could respond, several other students chimed in. I heard it too. I thought you were watching a horror movie. It was terrifying. Yeah. It woke me up. I heard it too. It was really scary. Ivy Yan, you're not actually possessed, are you? Ivy Yan's face flushed deep red. After a long moment, she snapped, possessed my foot. I just had a nightmare. Then she pointed at me again. Hazel Hahn tricked me out of a red envelope before and said it was for some life-buying ritual nonsense. I know your family isn't well off. If you don't have enough to eat, just tell me. I can treat you to a meal. But you can't use feudal superstition to deceive people like this. Professor, I suggest expelling Hazel Hahn. Don't let her harm other students. Hearing this, Professor Chen's gaze fell on me once again. The corner of my lips curved upward. Ivy Yan, since you've put it that way, then I won't protect you anymore. Professor, it's true that Ivy Yan gave me a red envelope. But that wasn't life-buying ritual money. It was hush money. Hush money? The professor looked confused. I smiled faintly. Yes. Earlier, Ivy Yan had an unexpected pregnancy. Her boyfriend disappeared and couldn't be contacted. She didn't dare tell her family, so she begged me to accompany her to get an abortion. She gave me that red envelope as hush money. Ivy Yan, I really didn't expect you to turn on me like this. Since you've done so, there's no reason for me to hide it anymore. The moment I finished speaking, the surrounding students erupted into whispers. I looked at Ivy Yan's flushed face and continued, these past few days she's been extremely unlucky. Perhaps the child she discarded is clinging to her. Ivy Yen, whether you believe in superstition or not, I was only trying to help you ward off evil out of kindness. And yet you bite back at me? That's not right. The discussion among the students grew louder. She looks so obedient usually. I can't believe she got pregnant. No wonder she got caught cheating. Maybe the baby's haunting her. Serves her right. The child was a life too. How could she just abort it like that? TSK, TSK. I never expected the top student in our year to do something like this. Ivy Yan's eyes nearly popped out of her head. She stared at me as though flames would burst from her gaze. After pointing at me for a long time, she suddenly lunged forward. Hazel Han, you liar. You're slandering my innocence. I'll fight you. Several classmates quickly grabbed hold of her before she could reach me. I remained where I was, unmoving, and said calmly, whether I slandered you or not, we can find out just by checking your medical records. Ivy Yen, you're truly shameless. You still expect me to keep this secret for you? Keep dreaming. Seeing the situation spiraling out of control, the professor barked sharply, enough. Tomorrow, both of you call your parents and have them come here. We'll sit down and find out what exactly is going on. As soon as he finished speaking, the students gathered around gradually dispersed and left. Ivy Yen followed behind the professor, turning back to glare at me. Hazel Han, just you wait. Fine, I replied coolly. I'll wait. After watching her leave, I slowly took out my phone and called my father. Dad, the professor wants to meet with the parents. Please come to school tomorrow. The next day, my father arrived at the school gate early. When I led him into the faculty office, Ivy Yen was already there waiting. The moment she saw us walk in, her gaze swept over my father from head to toe. A look of disdain spread across her face. Hazel Han, so your father's a fraud? Doesn't look like he scams much money. Dresses like a country bumpkin. I glanced at the old coat my father was wearing and sighed helplessly. Dad, couldn't you dress a little nicer? You earn plenty of money. Why do you always make yourself look like this? My father gave a simple, sheepish smile. I'm used to these clothes. As long as it doesn't embarrass my daughter, that's all that matters. He then turned politely to the professor. Professor, what mistake has Hazel made? Why was I called here? She's never had a parent-teacher meeting before. Before the professor could respond, Ivy Yen cut in arrogantly. Your daughter is spreading feudal superstitions in school and harming who knows how many people. She's about to be expelled. Like father, like daughter, a fraud begets another fraud. Today your whole family will be kicked out. Her words ignited a blaze inside me. She could insult me all she wanted. But how dare she insult my father? I strode forward and slapped her across the face. Ivy Yen, wash that filthy mouth of yours. Who are you calling a fraud? For years, people have come begging my father for help. He has never once gone looking for clients himself. Don't think just because your father donates a few walls to the school you can do whatever you please. A cheating student like you has no right to criticize me. I leaned closer, my voice cold. Let me tell you something. If you dare call my father a fraud again, I'll smash that mouth of yours to pieces. Ever since I was young, I had trained in Taekwondo. That slap was hard enough to leave Ivy Yen dazed for a long while. The professor was startled by my sudden action and immediately shouted, Hazel Han. What are you doing? Hitting someone in front of a teacher? This is outrageous. I turned and glared at him. Professor, if someone insulted your parents, wouldn't you hit back? He froze at my question. When he finally replied, his tone had noticeably weakened. Even so, you can't hit someone in front of a teacher. He cleared his throat. Enough. Today we're discussing your superstition issue. Ivy Yan's father is a well-known wealthy businessman in this area. He has donated a large amount of money to the school. It was obvious. Ivy Yan dared to involve the professor because she relied on her father's influence. I narrowed my eyes. We agreed both parents would be present. My father is here. Where is hers? Ivy Yan was still reeling from the slap, so the professor answered on her behalf. Director Yan is busy with work. He's not someone with free time. He'll need a while before he can arrive. Let's talk about your issue first. Why were you burning talismans in the dormitory yesterday? I curved my lips slightly. Professor, perhaps we should wait until Mr. Victor Yan arrives. By then, Ivy Yan had finally steadied herself. Her face was flushed red as she pointed at me and screamed, Hazel Han, you little bitch. How dare you hit me? From the day I was born until now, no one has ever laid a hand on me. Just wait until my father gets here. Let's see how he deals with you. I shot her a sharp glare. She immediately trembled, fear flickering in her eyes. The air in the room reeked of gunpowder. My father quickly tried to smooth things over. Hazel, what are you doing? How can you bully your classmate? Professor, this is all my fault. I shouldn't have told her those strange old stories. They were just for fun. I never expected her to take them seriously. Professor, please don't worry. And young lady, are you all right? Hazel bullied you, that's true. When we get home, I'll discipline her properly. See if she dares to hit you again. But his words only enraged Ivy Yan further. She bullied me? I'm the dignified young lady of the Yan family. Bullied by this country trash? You people should at least know your place. She sneered. Fine. I'm calling the police right now. Let them arrest all of you. Hazel Han, this slap alone is enough to send you to jail. If you don't kneel and apologize to me today, I will never let you off. With that, Ivy Yan pulled out her phone and began dialing the police. Suddenly, a man's voice rang out from outside the office. Ivy? What's going on? The moment Professor Chen saw who it was, he immediately bent himself into a servile smile and hurried forward. Director Yan, you're here. It's nothing serious, just classmates fooling around. I could have handled it myself, but Ivy insisted you come to preside over the matter. Sorry to trouble you. Ivy Yan, as if spotting her savior, rushed toward him at once. Dad. That bitch has been practicing superstition in the dormitory, and she even dared to hit me. Boo-hoo. Mr. Victor Yan shot me a vicious glare, but the instant his eyes shifted to my father, his expression changed completely. Shock. Clear and unmistakable shock. Ivy Yan did not notice the transformation in her father's face. She continued ranting, and Hazel Han's father is just a superstitious old fraud who goes around scamming people. I'm going to call the police and have them arrested. Without warning, Mr. Victor Yan swung his arm and struck Ivy Yan across the face. Call the police? What are you calling the police for? Why don't you report me too while you're at it? The sudden reversal left Ivy Yan utterly stunned. Even Professor Chen stood there dumbfounded. They watched as Mr. Victor Yen hurried over to my father, extended his hand, and forced a respectful smile onto his face. Master Han. I never expected we would meet again under such circumstances. My daughter is ignorant and spoke recklessly, offending you. Please don't hold it against her. My father, Master Han, clasped his hand warmly. Director Yen, you're too polite. So the one causing a scene just now was your daughter? We're all practically family. Making such a fuss isn't a good look. If there's any problem, we can resolve it quietly. No need to trouble the professor, right? The moment my father said that, Mr. Victor Yen nodded repeatedly. Then he turned to Professor Chen. Professor Chen, today was entirely Ivy's fault. Please pretend nothing happened. If there's anything to discuss, we'll handle it privately. He then patted Ivy Yen's shoulder. Ivy, apologized to Master Han. Tears streamed down Ivy Yan's face as she stared at her father in disbelief. When she didn't move, he slapped her shoulder again. Didn't you hear me? Apologize to Master Han. Now. She swallowed hard, clenched her teeth, and forced out the words, Master Han. I'm sorry. My father smiled as kindly as ever. Oh, Director Yen, what are you doing? The children just had a misunderstanding. Why apologize? There's no need. Mr. Victor Yen froze for a second, then immediately corrected himself and nudged Ivy again. Yes, yes. Quickly, apologize to your classmate. Ivy Yen ground her teeth so hard her jaw trembled. After a long pause, she squeezed the words out between her teeth. I'm sorry. I narrowed my eyes at her. I can't accept that apology. Didn't you say you were going to call the police and have me arrested? Didn't you say you wouldn't let me go unless I knelt and kowtowed to you? Mr. Victor Yan's face darkened. Gritting his teeth, he turned to Ivy Yen. Kneel down and apologize to your classmate. Before things could escalate further, my father quickly stepped in. Enough, enough. Director Yen, what are you doing? We're all one family here. Why make it like this? If there's a misunderstanding between the children, just explain it clearly. They'll still be classmates in the future, won't they? Mr. Victor Yen glared at his daughter. Why are you still standing there? Thank Master Han. Ivy Yen lowered her head and muttered, Thank you, Master Han. Only then did Mr. Victor Yen finally let out a breath of relief. He turned to my father again. Master Han, I've reserved a private room at Cloud Pavilion for lunch today. Would you honor me by joining? We were in the wrong first. I'd like to formally apologize to you and your daughter. After dining with Mr. Victor Yen, I finally understood everything. Recently, his company had been plagued by certain unclean matters. My father, Master Han, was a well-known feng shui master in the industry and a trusted consultant for many powerful businessmen. After several introductions, Mr. Victor Yen had found him and was preparing to ask for help resolving the issues his company was facing. As for the person Ivy Yen sought out to conduct the ghost marriage, he was my father's disciple, Ethan Wu. By coincidence, Ethan Wu knew that Ivy Yen was my dorm mate. He secretly sent me a message to warn me, so I simply followed the flow and set the ghost marriage in motion for her. After the ritual, Ivy Yen had begged her father for help. Her father, in turn, had sought out my father. Only then was the matter resolved, yet Ivy Yen had no idea it was my father who saved her. Instead, she strutted around arrogantly, thinking she could crush us, having just undergone an abortion, and with an old perverted spirit stealing her young lifespan. On top of being bound in a ghost marriage, Ivy Yan's complexion had turned ghastly. Every day she looked drained, lifeless. Final exams were approaching. One afternoon, while I was studying in the library, I suddenly received a message from Ethan Wu. After reading it, I burst into laughter. How unexpected. I never thought that in the end, I would be the one to ascend into nobility. I immediately called my father. That evening, when I returned to the dormitory, Ivy Yan was wearing a rare smile. She walked over holding a cup of milk tea and handed it to me. Hazel Han, what happened before was my fault. I've suffered enough already. Please forgive me. I looked at her and smiled. Ivy Yan, hearing you say that makes me happy. Your father and mine are friends after all. We share the same dorm. No one wants things to be tense. As I spoke, I took the milk tea from her and deliberately drank a sip. Then I frowned slightly. Why does this milk tea taste a little bitter? An unnatural expression flickered across Ivy Yan's face. Oh. Earlier you said you wanted to lose weight, so I only ordered 50% sugar. I smiled and nodded. Then I said casually, Ivy Yan, if you have time, why don't you go see my father for a reading? You've been so unlucky lately. Maybe your fate isn't good. Let my dad adjust it for you. Your father and mine know each other well. He won't charge you. Her eyes shifted away from mine. Ah. About that. Forget it. I'll figure something out myself. Hazel, just finished the milk tea. I stood in line for a long time to buy it, okay. I lifted the cup and gulped it down in big swallows right in front of her, drinking until it was completely empty. When she saw the cup drain to the bottom, the smile on her face grew even wider. That night, I was sleeping soundly when a foul, burning smell drifted into my nose. I narrowed my eyes slightly. In the middle of the dormitory, Ivy Yan was kneeling on the floor, hands clasped together, muttering something under her breath. A faint curve lifted my lips. I turned over and went back to sleep. The next morning, I felt so weak I could barely get out of bed. In a frail voice, I said, Ivy, I don't feel well. I might be sick. I'm not going to class today. If Professor Chen takes attendance, help me answer for me. Ivy Yan no longer looked haggard like before. Her face was radiant, flushed with life. She walked up to my bed and grinned. All right. Don't worry. Get some good rest. As soon as she left the dormitory, brimming with vitality, I sprang out of bed. I took out the talisman my father had given me, burned it to ashes, mixed the ash into a cup of water, and tilted my head back to drink it all in one gulp. A rotten stench slid down my throat and into my stomach. It felt as if a sheet of iron scraped across my esophagus. But in the next instant, the weakness vanished without a trace. I felt reborn. I grabbed my textbooks and went straight to class, slipping into a seat in the back row. Professor Chen did not call attendance at first. Just as the class was about to end, Ivy Yan suddenly raised her hand. Professor, isn't Hazel Han absent today? Why don't you take attendance? Professor Chen cast her a suspicious glance and was just about to begin calling names, when I suddenly stood up. Professor, I'm here. I even waved cheerfully. Ivy Yan's jaw nearly hit the floor. Professor Chen shot her a fierce glare, clearly engraving her name into memory, before leaving the classroom. That evening, when I returned to the dormitory, Ivy Yan stared at me in disbelief. Why did you go to class? I looked at her coldly. Why wouldn't I? You said you'd help me answer attendance, and then stabbed me in the back. Ivy Yan. You're truly cheap. You. She glared viciously, then abruptly began packing her belongings. I'm not staying in this dorm anymore. With that, she stormed out. Final exams arrived. At first, I had felt underprepared and worried, but unexpectedly, every single question on the exam was material I had thoroughly reviewed. Joy bloomed across my face as my pen flew over the paper, scratch, 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 finishing in no time. I stole a glance at Ivy Yen. Her face was flushed red, drenched in sweat. She looked around helplessly, completely at a loss. The exams lasted 2 days. When they ended, I was filled with confidence. Looks like first place is mine again. Perhaps I'll even secure another scholarship. Very soon, the results were released. As expected, I ranked first in the class. Ivy Yen, however, failed 2 additional subjects. But the good news didn't stop there. I was packing my things in the dormitory, preparing to go home, when Ivy Yen suddenly burst in with a funeral-like expression on her face. Phone still in her hand. Dad, how did it become like this? Didn't Master Han fix it for you? Why? The phone slipped from her fingers and clattered to the floor. She collapsed as well. I whistled lightly, ignoring her crumpled figure, and answered my own ringing phone. Dad? What? The company you invested in went public? Congratulations, Director Han. So I'm officially a second-generation rich now? See? If you don't push yourself, nothing happens. When I get home, buy me a sports car. Before I could even hang up, Ivy Yen lunged at me and shoved me to the ground. Hazel Han. Why? Why did my father go bankrupt while yours became a big boss? Why? I looked at her twisted, ferocious face and let out a cold laugh. With a flick of my arm, I sent her tumbling back to the floor. Why? Shouldn't I be the one asking you? What did you do to me that day? You know better than anyone. Her eyes widened. What did I do? I sneered. You swapped our fates. Did you forget? She stared at me in disbelief. How do you know? I couldn't help laughing at her foolish expression. My father is a feng shui master. The moment I took a sip of that milk tea you gave me, I knew you had added a talisman inside. I clicked my tongue. Ivy Yen. Swapping fates is vicious and immoral. And yet you dared to do it. You're truly despicable. Her lips trembled. Yes. I swapped fates with you, so what? Because of whom have I been so unlucky lately? Because of whom was I haunted by that perverted ghost? Because of whom was my cheating exposed? Hazel Han, no matter how capable your father is, he's still a country bumpkin. The unlucky one should be you, not me. I couldn't stand your fake, pretentious act. I wanted to dump all my bad luck onto you, so what? I burst into laughter. Sis, I should thank you. Your fate was bound to collapse anyway. The misfortune came from that ghost clinging to you. I paused, then lowered my voice. But what you truly don't understand is this. You are the one with a coy destiny. A once-in-a-century fate. Why do you think your father built his career so effortlessly? Why do you think you could rank first year after year? Why did scholarships always fall into your hands? Because your fate was coy destiny. I let the silence hang before adding with a grin. But I never expected you would hand that coy destiny over to me. Ha! Perhaps the waters of that destiny were too deep for you to control. Ivy Yen muttered incoherently, her mind in chaos. That. How could that be? Impossible. I gave her a cold smile. Ivy Yen, even with a coy destiny, your heart is crooked. A fate that powerful cannot be controlled by someone like you. Sooner or later, it would have backfired. Swapping it to me may very well be the smartest thing you've ever done. Laughing, I grabbed the pile of clothes on my bed and tossed them straight into the trash. My father is now a magnate. I suppose I should live a little more luxuriously, shouldn't I? Time to change into some new outfits. I turned back to look at Ivy Yen, still sitting dazed on the floor. Oh, one more thing. How does one become a proper second-generation rich? I just ascended into nobility, no experience yet. Perhaps you, a former first-generation aristocrat, could offer some advice? I tilted my head slightly, and maybe I can teach you a few tips on saving money. Hey, Ivy Yen. Don't faint on me. Say something. The end. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to like and subscribe to Love Stories with Lisa for more stories. Thank you so much.